Geography Shapes Egyptian Life, Chapter 4, Section 1. Essential question: what economic activities developed in Egypt? And by economic, you're talking about things that people did to survive, like make money. They didn't really have money in ancient Egypt, so you're talking about the trading of goods. One thing that Egyptians did was mine, and they mined for several different types of things. And another way to say mine is to say quarried. And quarried has to do with getting stone. And by obtaining stone by cutting, digging, or blasting. So they mined for several different things. One thing that they mined for at first was copper, and they used to make tools and weapons. Later they used iron because it was stronger. And it is better to obviously have stronger weapons and tools when you're in a battle, because that means that your weapon is going to last longer, and it might even be sharper. And both copper and iron were mined on the eastern desert, so right by the Red Sea, and in the Sinai Peninsula. Other things that they mined for was gold, and gold was prized highly in ancient Egypt. And because of it, they became excellent goldsmiths, probably some of the best in ancient times. Now, the ancient word for gold is nub, or noob. And there was lots of gold in Nubia, and that's how Nubia got its name. And we're going to watch a short video on the importance of gold.
It's a symbol, an investment. But in ancient Egypt, it was revered, the so-called flesh of the gods.
For them, gold was a part of immortality. That's why the king is put inside a coffin out of gold.
It's a symbol, an investment. But in ancient Egypt, it was revered, the so-called flesh of the gods.
For them, gold was a part of immortality. That's why the king is put inside a coffin out of gold.
Professor of Egyptology Tarek Taufik gave us a tour through Cairo's Egyptian Museum, with treasures dating back 5 millennia. But the star attraction here is a 19-year-old golden boy, King Tutankhamun.
I met him in the summer of 1976 when I was 7 years old.
And you still remember him?
Yeah, it's great to see him.
When Tut toured America for the 1976 bicentennial, 8 million fans lined up to see him.
What is it about this mask that captivates people so much?
I think when you look at the eyes, the corner of the eyes, we see the reddish part. It gives it something real.
Tut's 3,300-year-old tomb was discovered by Sir Howard Carter in 1922.
When Howard Carter wanted to remove the mask, he was so harsh that he removed the head of the poor king.
But with craftsmanship so fine, we know what the young king looked like.
He and his father were the only ones in ancient Egypt who wore earrings. No other king was shown ever wearing earrings.
And they're the big, like, sort of hipster earrings.
They were huge.
Of course, the sheer amount of ancient bling found inside the tomb is jaw-dropping. Beds, a throne, a chariot, all covered in gold.
The king was actually buried in this sarcophagus made out of 110 kilograms of pure gold.
That's 242 pounds, melted down, worth $6 million, as is, priceless.
Other things that they mined for were white limestone, which was used for temples and tombs, and it was also used to build the pyramids. We'll take a look at one of those. Here is a very nice example of how the stone is used. And a lot of artists would cut into them and they would paint on them. But you can tell it's a very white stone. You also have granite, which is stone, and it's a harder stone, and it comes in a lot of different colors. Mostly builders and sculptors would use this, and we'll look at an example of a sculpture. And this is a really nice example of a sculpture of a pharaoh, and he's in a kneeling position. He's holding something, and then obviously something happened to his other hand over there. But this is a black granite. All right, and we also have some precious stone. Turquoise, lapis lazuli, and emeralds were used, and we'll take a look at some jewelry. Now this is an example of some ancient Egyptian jewelry, and you can see the use of gold. These are falcon heads, and then the turquoise is this blue stone you see right here. The next thing that we're going to talk about is hunting and fishing. Reed rafts were built out of reed, obviously, for catching fish. And these are going to be a bit different than the big boats that we'll talk about in a second. They were very flat, and you think of almost paddleboarding that you see people do today. And they would catch the fish using harpoons or nets. More dangerous people or adventurous people would hunt hippos and crocodiles. They also captured quails, which were birds, with nets. And they also threw boomerangs at geese. Transportation and trade. Because of the Nile, people were able to move around the area of Egypt. And once they equipped their big boats with sails and oars, the Nile became a highway. People traveling north with the current would use oars so that they could get there faster. People traveling south would raise their sails so they would let the wind carry them to their destination. The Nile provided a surplus, and they began to trade, or what they would call bartering, like I'll exchange you 3 geese for a bushel of flax or wheat. And they didn't trade in money then. They did trade with Nubia to the south of them. They traded for exotic animals, gold, ivory, and incense. All right, don't forget to answer your questions in the quiz, and I'll see you tomorrow.